Even if you do not eat pork, this is a story that you need to keep a very close eye on because this is going to push up food prices everywhere. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. It's been a while since I read you all an article, but I found one today that seems pretty relevant. So I'm going to go ahead and read it off and maybe give you a little bit of my own input here if you'd like to listen to it. So here off of Zero Hedge, it says pig Ebola, which is commonly known as the African swine fever or swine flu, something like that. Pig Ebola is now running wild in Indonesia and has already killed a quarter of the world's swine or the world's pig. The global pig population is being absolutely decimated by a disease that does not have a cure, the African swine fever, also commonly referred to as pig Ebola, is raging out of control in dozens of countries all over the globe. It has a mortality rate of close to 100%, and once it hits an area, even the pigs that are able to survive the disease are killed off in order to prevent it from spreading elsewhere. From what I understand, ladies and gentlemen, this disease can be spread by people also that maybe have it on them. Now, it's not contagious to people, to like humans, meaning that if for some reason you ingest it, it's not going to hurt you. Right now, it's only been narrowed down to like pigs. But like if someone comes from one of these countries, they can have the disease on them and not know it. And that's what I've heard. Please correct me if I'm wrong if you know different, but that's what I heard. So I see this disease eventually coming to the US. I hope it doesn't, but there has already been a few people stopped, like by our customs, bringing pork from other countries that were infected by it. I think the last case of that I heard of was either in LaGuardia or is it Kennedy Airport in New York? I think I read something about that here a while back. Now, carrying on. Unfortunately, African swine fever just continues to pop up in more locations. As you will see below, it is now sweeping through the heavily populated nation of Indonesia. Nearly 270 million people live in Indonesia, and they are heavily dependent on pork as a source of protein. But of course, the same thing could be said about almost all the countries where African swine fever is currently raging. It states here that the mainstream media in the US hasn't been properly reporting on this crisis, and that is likely because this disease has not spread to our nation yet. But let there be no doubt, this is truly a crisis of biblical proportions. In fact, it has been estimated that this epidemic has already killed about 1/4 of the world's pigs. The following comes from an Australian news source. Experts say the disease has wiped out an estimated 25% of the world's pig population. The fever has been reported in around 50 countries, including China, Belgium, Slovakia, Cambodia, North Korea, South Korea, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And this same figure is being quoted by the New York Daily News. So I guess they have several sources as to where that figure is being quoted. Honestly, I thought it was more than 25%, but 25% is a really high number. Is Unfortunately, everyone on the entire planet is going to feel the pain of this crisis as it continues to intensify. We are potentially facing a serious global pork shortage, and this disease continues to pop up in new areas. When it recently began spreading in Indonesia, it made headlines all over the globe. And this is from Reuters. Nearly 30,000 pigs have died from African swine fever in Indonesia's North Sumatra province as of December 15, causing millions of dollars of economic losses as authorities try to quarantine the areas affected, officials said on Wednesday. The Agricultural Ministry has declared an outbreak of the highly contagious virus in the country and said it is contained only in some parts of North Sumatra. Asian countries rely very heavily on pork to feed their population, and the severe losses that we are witnessing are not going to be easy to replace. At this point, Indonesia has become the 11th Asian nation where African swine fever is spreading. The epicenter for this crisis is in China. The Chinese produce and eat more pork than anyone else in the world, and it was recently projected that their hog herd will likely be shrinking by 55% by the end of the year due to this disease. As I detailed in a previous article, it has been estimated that 150 million pigs have already died in China. To put that in perspective, there are only about 70 million pigs in the United States right now. So you could kill every pig in the United States twice, and you would still not get to the total that have already died in China because of this epidemic. Needless to say, pork prices are absolutely soaring in China. They have more than doubled since this time last year. And in November, we saw another huge jump in Chinese food inflation. And it says here, as has been the case for the past year, the culprit behind the headline CPI surge was food inflation, which accelerated further to a record of 19.1% in November from 15.5% in October, primarily on higher inflation in fresh vegetable and pork prices. Wow, that's astronomical, ladies and gentlemen. They had a 19% increase in food inflation, i.e., food prices, in November of this year, following a 15.5% increase of food prices in October. And it says here, primarily, the primary inflation was in fresh vegetables and pork prices, which, from what I understand in China, their main diet consists of pork and vegetables, and rice. So that's probably hitting them extremely hard. The bottom line is that this is an extremely serious threat to the global food supply. Beef, chicken, fish, and pork are the four main global sources of protein, and right now pork is already in very short supply in some parts of the world. And of course, this comes at a time when global weather patterns are going absolutely nuts, and we have seen disastrous harvest seasons all over the planet. We are entering the time of the perfect storm. And that's kind of like how I describe it, ladies and gentlemen. The perfect storm. Except here in the United States, the way that I would describe it is, if you've ever seen on camera what happens right before a tsunami, you see that the water on the beaches, they retract, they go back, and then everyone thinks everything's okay. Everyone that's not in the know, okay? Everyone that's not in the know thinks everything's all right, because if me and my family, or if my family and I were at a beach and I saw the water retreating, I would be like, we have to get out of here. We have to get to high ground ASAP, right? But what happens once that water's retreated? It comes back with a massive force of waves behind it. That's the perfect storm that I think they're referring to here when it comes to the United States. Right now, all we're seeing, or at least the people in the know, all we're seeing is that water retreating. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. And most people have absolutely no idea what is ahead of us. Even if you do not eat pork, this is a story that you need to keep a very close eye on, because this is going to push up food prices everywhere. Demand for beef, chicken, and fish will increase as pork becomes more expensive and consumers turn to other options. And in some of the poorer places around the world, some impoverished families may have to start cutting meat out of their diets entirely. We have never seen a crisis quite like this in any of our lifetimes. Despite all of our advanced technology, we are still dependent on farmers to produce the food that we eat. And this is truly an existential crisis for the entire global pork industry. And like it states here also, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just going to affect pork prices. Some people may say, well, I don't eat pork because the pig is the dirtiest animal, on earth, right? So I don't eat pork. But that's fine and dandy that you don't eat pork. However, all of the people that do eat pork, that now do not have that pork available to them, what are they going to turn to? They're going to turn to a different type of protein, therefore putting more pressure on the supply and demand for that protein, be it chicken, be it fish, be it beef, be it vegetable-based proteins. And what's going to happen when the demand for those items go up because a different type of protein, i.e. pork, is not available? Well, those prices are going to go up. So it will affect everyone, not just people that eat pork. There is no way to spin this to make it sound nicer. Many are hoping that this outbreak will subside eventually, but right now it doesn't look like that will happen. And once this disease reaches the United States, we will start to experience the same panic that is already sweeping through nearly 50 other nations around the globe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, I hope you got something out of it, and more so, I hope that you do some more of your own research so that you can better prepare for what is coming, if anything at all. In my opinion, not only is it coming, but we're starting to see it come. So prepare yourselves, prepare for your families the best way that you can. Right? We all have different abilities on what we can do. So prepare for yourselves and your families the best that you can. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much for joining in. I hope you guys have a great day and a great weekend ahead. Don't forget that this Sunday, we're going to be doing a live stream where we will be talking about anything except for prepping. All right? So be ready for that, 3 p.m. Alaska time this Sunday. Having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper. I am out.